Good morning, folks. It's Sunday morning, March 12th, the birthday of my ex-wife with whom I had the marriage annulled. And I remember her birthday. I remember the year of it, too, 1970. Oh, wow. What a loser she turned out to be. I'm sorry, she was physically beautiful. She was, and she was a nurse. She was a professional. She was a dope dealer, and she cooked methamphetamines, and she worked the streets in St. Louis. And married 5 other guys before I met her when she was age 35. My God, did she lie and deceive. I'm sorry, but women in general are allergic to responsibility. I know, if you're female, you're listening to this, you're going to get upset with me for saying that. But the fact is, all y'all have been given license for too long. And you're not accountable. You know, at this point, you don't even encourage each other to do the right things. You encourage each other to do the wrong things, to do the bad things. Look, the Bible says clearly that only 1 out of 1,000 men is honest. That's it. And when it comes to women, it says not even 1 out of 10,000. That's what it says. It's in there. I could look it up for you, I suppose, but you can find it yourself too. I had some wonderful things planned for this morning, and I got sidetracked. I got up an hour late. The time change happened, and I slept in. Wow. And there's no time change where I am, but my damn cell phone, I had that thing set so it wouldn't be tracking my location. So, of course, it didn't change. It changed times like most of the country does to daylight savings time, which I hated since I was a little child. They brought that into being supposedly so children wouldn't have to go to school in the dark. Look, in Alaska, it didn't matter, man. We're going to the school in the dark. We're coming home in the dark. You know, you go outside at about 10 in the morning and you walk out to across the parking lot from the school so you can catch a glimpse of the sun to remember what it looks like, because you're going to go back in the classroom. And when you get out and get on the bus and take that long bus ride home, thanks to those stupid Supreme Court justices, Felix Frankfurter in particular, little guy with a big bulbous head, decided that we had to force people to integrate. So I had to take a 45-minute bus ride one way. What a hell of a sentence. I don't give a damn what his ideals were. Anyway, it's bad for biological systems to be adjusting the time like that. And we in Alaska saw fit to really screw things up. We used to have 5 time zones. Now we're down to 1. Talk about throwing things off. I mean, it's a huge state. The light really varies quite a bit, but we have to have it at the same time so people can do business, because we know doing business is more important than anything else in the world. For slaves, it certainly is. For biological systems, it makes no sense, and it should not be given priority over biological systems, over nature. I hate daylight savings time. It is a mess. And one of the things about the Bible is it makes it really clear that the Antichrist changes times and dates and stuff like that. Yeah, it's one of those characteristics that points out in advance before the bad guys do it. So I don't like it. I don't want it. I think I'm hooked up to the hearing aids on this right now, so I don't know if your sound is quite as good as mine is. It's a beautiful day, it really is, but the dog has pestered me to go out almost a dozen times already, and it's been kind of a rotten deal. She wants to go right back outside, and it's wearing me out, wearing me thin. I've also been kind of waylaid. I was engaged with a woman in discourse on Facebook, and she got upset with me because I was attending my Bible study. I mean, kind of my worship service. I do that as much as I can on Sundays and other nights too, Thursdays in particular. But I forget quite often, and I don't get to do it. And sometimes these wonderful apps and phone systems don't work, and I can't get through. We just had to change the app quite a bit and adjust to it, new settings and all that. And it's working pretty good. The sound is excellent. So I don't feel like I'm all alone quite so much. But I don't know why a woman feels so entitled that she thinks she can have my attention demanded and I'm supposed to be giving it to her, and then make some weird sort of accusation about you're talking to other women. Look, ladies, we men know that you talk to other men, that you'll monkey branch in a heartbeat. You won't hesitate. You're always looking for greener pasture. You're always looking to increase your game, to increase your status, to find somebody with a bigger wallet. It's just the way it is today in this society. And that's all that matters, and as far as what you value in life, I'm sorry, but it's nice to have money, sure. It makes things easier for the most part, but not when you're enslaved, not when your values are kind of low-life values, to be honest with you. And that seems to be universal, I have to admit it. Anyway, as one friend of mine says, you hope that a woman would be interested in you because you've got some time, some experience, some wisdom, and they might actually want to avail themselves of that, but that's not important. And I think there's a mistake in the Bible, and I'll point it out to you. This one I'm going to read to you. Sorry, and I know this is just giving psychology away. This isn't my Bible channel, my Bible show. This is giving psychology away. But I'm going to read this to you, and I'm going to read to you what I think it should say. And this error continues off in the newest, greatest, best Bible of all, the one that I do my best to represent and to sell. But this is a universal mistake, and this is in Genesis. And this is right after Yahweh, Creator Father, confronts Eve, who was his daughter, by the way, with the serpent. Both are together, but only Eve and Yahweh are speaking. The serpent is pretty shrewd. He keeps his mouth shut. He knows when to do that. And it says here, and Yahweh said to the serpent, verse 14, chapter 3, Genesis, and God said to the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. It shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Unto the woman, he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. Now, what I think it really should read is, your desire shall be to rule over your husband, and he shall rule over you. So I think they left out rule over. Those two little words that mean very little, I guess. Because it appears to me that women are dominating relationships. My mother was too strong. She dominated Dad way too much. She later in her life said she had been too hard on him, and she certainly had been. And that's a problem. However, there's a lot in these three verses that we should be looking at. And Yahweh said to the serpent, because you have done this, what did he do? Well, he beguiled, he seduced Eve, God's daughter. So here it is, one of the fallen angels. In case you're wondering, his name is Gadriel, from which we shortened the name, get the nickname Gad, God. So that's how they threw that deception in on us. You know, the nickname for Gadriel became a noun, a classification, God. And that's why we have in this Bible Yahweh God, because the proper name of Yahweh, God is Yahweh, and God is kind of a classification, if you will. It's a noun. So, the serpent deceived Eve, and he was cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Notice, that sounds redundant, but it's not really. You just have to know what beast of the field means in the Bible. And I can't go into that here because that would be considered racist, evil and bad. But that's basically what it is, and I'll never forget who it was that pointed out to me. The beast of the field, of course. They know who they are. Enmity between you and the woman, between Satan, or the fallen angelic class known as Satan's, and between your seed and her seed, between the children of Gadriel and his first child, his firstborn was Cain, and her seed, Abel, fathered by Adam. And of course, Cain murders his half-brother, Abel. Oh well, it's not that hard once you understand what you're reading. It's not that hard to understand the rest of the book. I suggest you avail yourself of it. I do not consider myself educated, even with a doctorate, and not properly educated until I read the Bible. And I would tell you right now that if I had to do things over again, I would like to have studied Latin, Greek, and Aramaic, and Hebrew, so I could read this in the original languages. That would be a real education. Did you know that when our nation was founded, the average boy went to college at 14, 15, was considered a little on the old side to be going to college? Do you realize that that's the age they went into the universities? It was a much more serious enterprise than what we have today. Education had not been adulterated, watered down. It hadn't been inflated. It hadn't been thrown off course nearly as much. Did you also know that the founders were all educated in the Bible? That's what they started off reading. They had that for their foundations. And as a result, they were not so easily deceived. But you're led by your nose. You're led by your appetites. They set the traps very well. Packaging and marketing. That rules the roost. They even package up your value system. And they fed that to you in the early days of television, the 50s and the 60s, and even the 70s. And they gave you wholesome values. And slowly but surely, they changed the values. They changed the social mores. They took us downhill. They didn't go as fast as they did the last time they did this. When was the last time they did this? Well, they did it to Berlin, the Weimar Republic. And they had a currency, and the inflation was wild. Yeah, that's coming. That's what's next. So the value of the money is going to drop until you abandon it completely and insist upon coined gold and coined silver. So you might as well save up your coins because they're going to have more value than these paper bills are going to have in short order. What I would like for you to do is take that link down below. It'll take you to a page, and there's a drop-down box, a menu box. It'll give you 5 different formats of this Bible to buy. I want everybody to buy one of these Bibles. I would recommend you get the large print version. You don't need to get the fancy one with the tabs. It costs a little bit more money. But I would get the large print version, which is what I have right here. It's 14-point print. It's pretty easy to read that. Look at the size of it. Get yourself one of these. And you can put it on the coffee table if you want and just use it to talk about. But if you're really smart, you'll get it out and read it and realize that you're programming yourself up. And you might just program yourself up with enough good stuff so you might understand how to get your republic back. Yeah, you might get rewarded with that. But I have news for you. America's never going to be great again until and unless America is good again. That's the way it works. It doesn't work the other way around. You become great, then you become good. Hell no. You become great, and then you follow the course to debauchery. You take it downhill from there. And you forget about Yahweh. In case you're wondering, there's a book in here called the Book of Judges. It's very inspiring. There were female judges. And of course, the one you're going to recognize the name of is Samson. It's the most famous judge of all. The theme is the same. The Israelites forget about Yahweh, Creator, Father God. They stop following His laws, the 10 Commandments. Oh, there's more to it than that, but that's the heart and soul of it. That's basically the center of it. There's a few other things which I think are more important than the 10 Commandments, but those are only going to become apparent to those of you who really push into the Bible and really read it, and not just casually, but reread it. One of those is to love your neighbor as yourself, okay? Which means you got to love yourself, okay? Don't forget that part about it. And another one is love, truth, and justice. And it's in that order. It's always love truth first, because without truth, you can't have justice. And look at America today. Think there's any justice? There's not any truth, is there? Bunch of lies, bunch of deceits. They did not want, Congress argued against forming the FBI for years, saying it would become too powerful. Well, they were right. It is too powerful. I think they all should be taken into custody. I'd love to see them all arrested, every one of them. We'll call it protective custody so that they won't be too embarrassed. But then I think they need to be debriefed. And at this point, who do we have to debrief them? My idea is you take the intelligence branches of each of the military branches, the separate intelligence, separate branches, and you have them investigate each of these men and women, each of these agents, individually and separately. So in other words, you've got Navy intelligence, Air Force intelligence, Army intelligence, at least that number, each investigating. And if any of them wants to bring up charges, they should. They need to document the history thoroughly and completely. And if they find somebody that's very cooperative, somebody who actually understands right from wrong, and has got some balls about them, has got some morals, has some intestinal fortitude, has a strong constitution, has good character, then they can work with intelligence to go after the bad ones. Because there are bad ones. They've got murderers and thieves among the FBI. Some of those FBI agents have been shaking down foreign governments, foreign countries, like Albania, the Ukraine. Yeah. I think that's what we need. We need to clean house. We need to clean it properly. But we need a foundation. Where are we going to get that foundation? We could go to our founding documents. That would be a good start. And we could actually go to the documents upon which those were based. Vattel's Law of Nations. What do we learn from Vattel's Law of Nations? The king is obligated to protect his subjects. And when he fails to protect his subjects, then he has given them their independence. That's what happened to the United States. We were given our independence. The king abandoned us. And a few years later, he changed his mind. So we didn't rebel against him. That's an important point. It became a war of self-defense. Self-defense is blessed. Rebellion is not. And right now, I think almost anything you do is going to be in self-defense because this central government's busy killing us as fast as they can and on the sly as much as they can. But don't try to justify murders as being self-defense. Certainly, there's no avenue for us to get justice anymore. I suppose we could form organic state governments once again. I suppose we could reduce ourselves to the county rule and not let anybody else in. Jones County, Mississippi did that during the Civil War. They wouldn't let any outsider in. They killed them all. You weren't welcome there. And as a result, they didn't get burned. They didn't get pilfered. They didn't suffer like the other counties in the South did when the North was occupying them and the carpetbaggers went and invaded the South. It takes fine discriminations and thought to be able to pull any of this off. You have to be able to think clearly. You have to use intelligence. It takes time. You have to apply yourself. It's not instant. It's just like exercising. It's not instant. But you got to start somewhere. So what are the advantages of reading my Bible? First, you're going to know Yahweh's proper name, Yahweh. Second, you're going to know Yeshua, his proper name. And you'll even get his proper title, the Messiah. Yes, he's called the Christ once in the New Testament, one time. The same verse, he's called the Messiah. You see, these modern churches have taken this book and made false religions out of it. They've brainwashed us and taken the country down from inside using this Bible, especially the Schofield Reference Study Bible of 1917. They've got you worshiping the wrong God. They've got you worshiping the wrong people. They have set up things so you can't see things straight. You can't think straight. They have twisted things up. Did you know that in the colonies, the original colonies, it was against the law to celebrate Christmas? Yeah, it was against the law to close up your shop because it was considered a pagan holiday. And in case you're wondering about it, the first Christmas, December 25th, is in the apocryphal books, which we Protestants saw fit to take out of the Bible. This is something I'm going to read to you. You need to hear this. Okay, I'm getting this out of the old King's English, so it's going to sound kind of quaint to you. I just learned this recently. I keep learning. And so I'm turning over to 1 Maccabees. There are 1 Maccabees. There should be 4 Maccabees in this thing. Two Maccabees. Well, there's 2 Maccabees in here. And if we turn to chapter 1, and in verse 54, Now the 15th day of the month Casleu, Casleu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law, which they found, meaning the Bible, the Old Testament, they burnt them with fire. Book burnings aren't anything new. And wheresoever was found any the book of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should be put to death. Thus they did by their authority until the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th day of the month they did receive upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of God. You see, they went in the temple and they set up another altar on top of the altar that was there. And this is the 25th day of the month, at which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. And they hanged the infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. So the first Christmas, if you will, was celebrated and documented in here. They killed all the baby boys that had been circumcised. They hung the bodies around their mothers' necks. And then they went through the houses, and then they killed the mothers. That's a hell of a thing to celebrate, isn't it? But that's what you're given by the evil ones and his children. They changed everything around. They changed the calendar, they changed the times. There's all kinds of stuff written about the Antichrist in the Bible. A lot of it's come to pass, and thereby you can identify the Antichrist Corporation, the Antichrist organization today. And it was illegal to celebrate Christmas. Christ wasn't born on the 25th anyway. He wasn't born in winter when there was snow on the ground. If you read the New Testament, you find out he was born in the fall, but it was way before wintertime. So you have to love the truth. Otherwise, you can't administer justice. If you don't know the truth, how are you going to be able to decide what's best? You can't. And political correctness is what preceded the Israelites being taken out of the northern house of Israel, out of the northern half of the nation. And political correctness is going on here. And they basically aren't going to move you this time. They might nuke you right in place, but they definitely have superimposed a foreign jurisdiction on you. This young guy up in Farmington, Utah was executed recently by several policemen. I guess it was about 5 policemen opened fire on him. One of the policemen shouted, "Gun, gun, gun!" And that evidently is the war cry, if you will, or the permission or the commandment to open fire and execute this poor son of a bitch. He wasn't paying enough attention to the police officer. That's what his mistake was. He was on his cell phone. He should have ended the call and paid attention to the police officer. But now you're chief of police up in Farmington, Utah. I just wrote his name, Eric something or other, down. He claims that these police officers need their privacy now. Doesn't want to identify them. Hold on. A man lost his life. And you're telling me that the officer's privacy is more important than a human life? Sorry, Chief of Police. Sounds like you're covering up a murder to me. Whoever it was that screamed gun, gun, gun was in error. I think. I'm not sure about that. So I don't want to condemn him in advance. But still, a man lost his life because a police officer is so afraid, so dumb, so mistaken that he jumps the gun. And he calls for every officer to open fire and empty their guns into the poor guy. This guy who was so confident in his understanding of the law that he wasn't giving them enough attention to realize the danger he was in. 25-year-old in a BMW, no license plates, unregistered vehicle. Well, there was a time we didn't have to register vehicles. That's part of the foreign jurisdiction they have superimposed on us. Apparently, this fellow had his passport, and he was a proper citizen of his state, a proper American national. He had done everything proper to remove himself from that jurisdiction that the officers operate in. See, the officers operate under the color of law, which is a crime in itself. We need our militias. There's no doubt about it. We are going to be turning to firearms. I hate to say that. I hate that idea quite a bit. I don't want to have to do it. Every time I go to the range, I'm reminded of how impoverished my skills are and how hopeless it feels. Like I've got to be able to, under nerve-wracking circumstances, be able to aim this thing steady and pull the trigger. Man, I got to first be able to identify the danger. And I'm slow at it at my age. I am. That's all there is to it. We need to read our Bibles. We need to be very polite. You shouldn't blow off an officer because you're busy on the phone. You should pay attention to what's going on. You should be as respectful of a police officer as you can so he feels confident that he's going to go home alive. That's the most important thing you do when you're stopped, is you make sure the officer feels, understands, is in control, is in charge, because then he doesn't feel like he's got to defend himself. He doesn't have to worry about his family or his life. These officers are not schooled properly. They're certainly not trained properly. They're not up to doing the jobs that they're required to do. We once were self-ruled. Self-rule meant you had militias. It meant everybody had arms. Everybody had a gun. It wasn't unusual to see one. You didn't have to panic upon sight of one. My God, when I was in high school, there were all kinds of guns in the back racks inside the vehicles, a lot of which were not locked. Shotguns and rifles. Heck, kids were hunting on the way to school, and on the way home they hunted. Then we had groups of kids come in with their real fancy .22 rifles, part of the rifle club. I mean, it was a sport. And heck, I was assigned my own M1 in 10th grade in ROTC in high school. Almost forgot about that. Okay, it was neutered. I never fired it. I think it was, something was done to it, so it was dismantled. Well, it wasn't dismantled, but it was rendered inoperable. Okay, fine. But I still had to clean the thing and take care of it and pretend like it was, well, it was a real gun. I had to know how to handle it. That was required in 10th grade in the school I was at. Man, have we come a long ways. Imagine if kids today in 10th grade had to go to ROTC. And by the way, back then the girls wanted to be let into it. We let them into it. They loved the uniforms and stuff. Okay, fine. They love the fact they got all the attention from all the men they got to hang around with, too. So, fine, too. Actually, I don't think we let them in back then. I don't know. I don't remember. It's been so long. Anyway, I want you to buy my Bible, and I want you to become a Bible reader if at all possible. You need to become literate in the Bible. You need to start friendships up with other people that read the Bible and talk about it. Why? If you want to be a free people, then you have to be under an authority. Why not be under Yahweh? Why not be under the universal laws of the Ten Commandments? It's either that or you're going to be under man's law. And at this point, I don't even think it's man's law we're under. I think we're under Satan's law, Satan's rule. Those people rule the roost. They dictate the values to the rest of us. Isn't it horrible? I mean, I just recently became aware of Trannywood. That's what Hollywood has become. It turns out that a lot of those actresses that a lot of women look up to and they try to get bodies like these actresses have, they can't do that. It's not a woman's body, it's a man's body. The stage has had a tradition since Shakespearean times, and that is that women were not allowed on the stage. Everyone on the stage during the Elizabethan era was a man, including Juliet. And today, you have so many transgenders running around in Hollywood that it is kind of bizarre, especially when you find out that these sex idols are the other gender. Talk about a mind bender. Talk about twisted sister, twisted brother. Talk about messed up. And it looks like these people worship the androgynous Satan in order to be rewarded with these positions and these lucrative lifestyles that they have and incomes. Wow. It's really a shock. It really is. I think the transgender that are telling you who they are and what they're about are being a lot more honest than the people in Hollywood are. A lot more honest. And a lot more noble about it as well. I mean, sure, it's a bit unsettling. But at least they're telling you who they are and what they're about. Most of these Hollywood actresses don't tell you that. Because they're men in disguise. Long-term body bending, long-term therapies, surgeries, chemistry. Wow. Okay. Welcome to the United States of America, where everybody's free to do whatever they want as long as they obey the central government, the central communist government. And if you can tell the difference between private corporations and our government, or governments, I guess I should say, then tell me, because I want to know, do the corporations own this government, or does the government own those corporations? These big corporations like Google, Facebook, YouTube, do they own this government? Does this government work for them? Or are they maybe part of our government? Maybe they're Department of Defense, DOD, intelligence operations being performed against our own people. Dare we call it propaganda? I don't know how we get a chance to sit back and sort this out and figure out what we got here inside the country and what our country's about. What kind of government do we really have? It is not a democracy. A republic is a higher form of government, and it's way far away from a republic. And it's not a democracy as they claim. The media runs the show. My God, is the media the government today? Are these government officials just actors and actresses? Is all the world a stage? Where have I heard that before? Yeah, it certainly appears all the world is a stage. And we're just now discovering that things aren't what they seem. They haven't been what they've seemed for a long time, since way before I was born, and probably way before you were born too. What do we need to do about it? I say we need to sit and read our Bibles. We need to get grounded ourselves. Get grounded in the Word. Read the Constitution. Get grounded in the Word. There's things that are said about our Constitution that are not true. There are things that are said about Jesus that are not true. There are things that are said about different peoples that are not true. But there's only one way to figure all that out, and that takes some study. It takes some time. I believe if we turn this nation into 5% Bible readers, not churchgoers, not aligned with any particular faith, any particular religion, any particular denomination, not members of some big box corporate church on the corner that's required to report about their members to the Department of Homeland Security. Yeah, they all have to do that by law. And not a bunch of churches that are all incorporated under the government as 501c3 churches, and they're required to preach what the Department of Treasury requires them to preach, which is not biblical stuff, by the way. It's a whole different thing. It's a mixed up, screwed up world. The kinks. Except for me and my Lola. Wow. You know, back then, the song just resonated. It sounded wonderful. We didn't realize what Ray Davies was singing about. We were naive. We were innocent. Today, we can't make the same claim, and it's been decades since that song came out. We didn't realize how much the music was being used to undermine the family in this nation. You see, they had to undermine the American family to get control over us. And that's what all of this crap is about. It's about undermining the family. There's not enough support for families in this nation. Families should get the support necessary so they can stay together, so they can rear children, so that the children have two parents, so that there's enough money coming in that the family's needs are taken care of and they don't have to be dependent upon the government handouts. Our founders said it was immoral to charge a man an income tax, the wages, his daily wages, whereby he supported himself, so he wouldn't become dependent upon the government dole. Wow. Have we screwed that up? And I'm not even sure where the taxes go to. My understanding is associated with that Federal Reserve System and with England. The King of England, the Bank of England, the Rothschilds, and their frontmen, the Morgan and the Rockefellers are players in this thing too. And the Bushes are players in this thing. And the Clintons are players in this thing. It's all corrupt. It's all practically useless. I can't keep it separate. I can't keep it straight in my mind. It's hard to tell right from wrong. It's hard to tell the good guys from the bad guys. You know, the old values that we were taught about forgiveness and not judging others, well, we have to do the judging. There's no way around it if we're going to save ourselves and our nation. But as far as forgiving goes, that's a whole nother deal. But when people refuse to admit they've done something wrong, like blowing away this guy in his BMW because he didn't have his car registered according to your belief system, your religion, that piracy domain, that admiralty law, that uniform commercial code, that interstate commercial code, that horrible system of statutes, statutory law that deprives us of our rights, deprives us of our citizenship, deprives us of our real money, deprives us of our own labor. That's a problem. I can't even hardly say all that and keep my place and where my thoughts going. I mean, it is confusing as can be. So you want to rebel. Well, this thing about being the resistance doesn't appeal to me much because the French resistance was very famous for being communistic. Yeah. But of course, that's what we have, is communist government right now. We are the biggest and baddest communist on the whole planet right here, the United States federal government. Yeah, our State Department has been filled with commies, and they've never made a mistake by making a decision that worked against world communism, have they? They haven't. They are the ones that interfered in the Chinese. When Mao Zedong was going to invade mainland China, they stopped him. They stationed the 7th Fleet between that island and mainland China. And Chiang Kai-shek was well armed, well trained. They were going to win. And we, in the United States of America, interfered in the self-determination of that peoples. And so now you're stuck with the Chi-Coms? Your State Department did that. And of course, a lot of you think Russia's the enemy. They've been the enemy. They're still the enemy. When did they go communist? Why did they go communist? And where was that revolution launched from? Launched from Manhattan, Brooklyn, launched from our own nation. Folks, the way I see it is we owe the Russian people quite a bit. We allowed them to be taken down from the bankers on our shores. And by the way, the guy's name was Schiff. Ask Adam Schiff about Jacob Schiff. Jacob Schiff started World War I. It didn't just happen. He made it happen. Why? Because Taft was elected to the office of president. And Jacob Schiff went in and demanded that he live up to his promise, his campaign promise of not giving any visas to Russians. And before he left the White House, Mr. Schiff was heard saying to his entourage, "Gentlemen, this means war." Yeah. So he decided we were going to go to war. Why do we allow such evil people citizenship here? Why have we made ourselves a home to the devil and his children? Why do we allow them to do this to us and to do this around the world? Don't you realize that we've become the beast system? We started off as the great nation foretold in Genesis. Yes, we did. But today, we're the beast system. You want to know about the beast system? Again, it's in the apocryphal books. Protestants saw fit to pull this out of the Bible. Catholics helped them. 2 Esdras chapter 11. Then saw I a dream, and behold, there came up from the sea an eagle, which had 12 feathered wings and 3 heads. And I saw, and behold, she spread her wings over all the earth, and all the winds of the air blew on her, and were gathered together. Your 3-headed eagle. The big head in the middle is Rome, and you have a head on the right and a head on the left. And they were in the order of creations, London and Washington, D.C. That's your 3-headed beast system today, which Daniel started off writing and talking about, and he was told not to write any further, because it was not to be revealed until the latter times, until the end times. Well, now that you know what it is, go get it and read it. You can probably look this up online and read it for free. I think you can do that. It's in the public domain. It was written a long time ago. So that's what the United States of America has become today. It's the beast system. It rules over the whole planet. It's not the United States rules over the whole planet. We're just the military branch. We're the enforcers for the New World Order. And in case you're wondering, there is no new world order. It is the world order. They've been on this planet for approximately 70 to 72,000 years. They have survived several Earth ages, and they've come up on top every time. But this time, they don't make it. And Nathan Rothschild is already on the public record, pleading, we mustn't lose the Ukraine, because if we do, our new world order is done. Look, folks, it's just the old world order, the devils that were running this planet before Adam was placed on it, and Adam was placed here to take it over and run it for the benefit of all inhabitants. It's just the old world order. And in case you're wondering, you have a bunch of interlocking corporate boards, all controlled under the big corporation, the mother corporation, the one corporation out of Rome. Ever hear of canon law? Have you ever heard it when they sound the cannons? That's when they install a new general on their army. They fire cannons every damn time. And the new general is the Pope's boss. Probably the most powerful man on the earth. All right, folks, I'm going to call it. I apologize for being late today on Sunday. Hope you'll forgive me on that one. But we got this thing done. And I'm going to just take a guess. This is going to be number 142. I'll check my sequence and make sure. But you've been tuned in to Giving Psychology Away. May Yahweh bless. May Yahweh make you good again, that you may have the full greatness of this life.